Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Parent-Tibbetts. Thank you, Lindsay, for that introduction. Um, I have kind of give you an overview of some of the things that both I'm familiar with, and two we've learned along the way. That's the presentation is. I think it's titled "Facilitation of Agritourism." And it's really meant to be kind of your office assistant style presentation, meaning that we're all good at juggling assortment of different things on our farm, but the question is, it still all goes back to the office work or the computer work or the technology work and so on. So I just want to kind of jump in and tell you again, Andrew Parent-Tibbetts. I'm the principal owner of Clover Farm. We're located here in Hyde Park, New York. We're just about an hour and a half north of New York City, to give you a kind of a point in reference here. My husband and I purchased this old dairy farm that has buildings dating back to 1850, and from a family that had farmed for 4 generations. So in 2016, when we purchased the farm, cute little story is I was a school administrator for 30 years and had said to my husband, because I was pretty much done in the whole private school administration side. I said, let's buy a farm and flip it. That's a joke, and some of you are probably laughing, other you are going, oh, no, that's interesting. But there's no such thing as flipping a farm because it just takes so much work. One of the things I didn't mention when we purchased a farm, even though it had been farmed for 150 years, it had been let go for about 30. And so when we came here, it was a bit of a jungle, so it has been a really interesting and enjoying journey along the way. After purchasing the farm in 2016, it has taken a good 3 to 4 years to kind of, as we say, cut back the jungle because there was so much overgrowth. And so we have been trying to find our way along the way. We did each bring our own passion to the farm. Specifically for me, it's fiber farming. For him is brewing beer. Kind of a nice little combo. So we raise as a fiber farmer both llamas, alpacas, pygora goats, and sheep, of course. And he basically, as I say, he is my husband, is working full time off the farm. He's a local college professor, but part time he is growing hops for brewing beer. So, anyways, that's kind of a small little thing of our background. But other than that, we have been involved in agriculture for a while, but we are still considered to be first generation farmers. As a first generation farmer, we had the experience of being a 4-H leader and still are for 15 years. Assortment of both our kids showing animals and also us working with individuals with disabilities in the 4-H side of it, which is associated in Dutchess County, called Flourishing Farmers. But beginning in 2022, we have started offering an assortment of experiences. So I'm sorry, I should back up. In 2019, we started our animal experiences. You can see hikes, walks, petting zoo style, yoga on the farm, tea time with alpacas. I can go on and on. And so I have the kind of analogy that, it's like spaghetti, throw it against the wall. If it sticks, go with it, assuming it doesn't have too much of a capital investment. In addition to that, we've been doing summer camps here, and then also in terms of education, we stay on top of that we're a certified educator through Fearless Farmers. Really quickly, what's next for us, just to let you know, I mean, we have all these other things. You can go on our website and check it out. That's not really where I want to spend the time today, but we're going forward with glamping and also farm stay experiences. On my to-do list is to establish a broader you-pick flower field. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, is we have a hop field. So anyways, that's just a little bit about Clover Farm. We do have a lot of balls in the air. One thing I was just mentioning to Lindsay earlier, which I don't talk about it here, is we are renovating a barn to have 2 teaching classrooms and a teaching kitchen. Help wanted. That is always an issue here on the farm, specifically, I think in a lot of small businesses. And so the decision has to be, are you large enough at this point that you think hiring what we refer to, since COVID, we've kind of split kind of the definition of employment of people. And so I've called it in-person employees versus virtual or remote assistants. And so that's kind of been a big question in terms of, where are you with your business monetarily? Can you support a full-time person, both through the money side and also timing? So these are just some of the quick things that we're going to go over. And talk about some of the options in place of. We all would want that highly qualified, we could say accountant, marketer, salesperson, self-motivated, someone who can easily work part-time, full-time, seasonal, low pay, odd hours. And it's hard to find an in-person employee that can do that. And also, looking at your business plan and looking at where that, any of these categories, in-person, virtual, or remote assistance would fit. I guess the question would be is, can you have and use both of them? And of course you can. Sometimes a blend of many different services gives given your business needs, your time, and maybe you have friends and family that can step in without too much commitment. But the next few slides will break down each category, some in more depth than others, to better explain a few of the many services that can be drawn on to support your business. And the classifications, as you see: internships, community service, retirees, volunteers. I always like to add that word beware at the end, just because there is sometimes volunteering is not what it always sounds like it should be. We're going to talk a little bit about collaborations, outsourcing, and of course, the biggest part is the e-office tools and the risk and communication. So let's flip to the next slide. Okay, so back to that in-person scenario. I say warm bodies versus virtual assistants. Before you go forward, of course, reflect on your business mission. How best is your business served? With an in-person person, a live, real employee, or maybe a virtual assistant, or maybe remote assistant. There are pros and cons to each. Specifically, the pros for an in-person employee: knowledge of company's culture and mission, greater control of your employee's work outcome versus an outsourced labor, basically a mini you. The cons of an in-person employee is, of course, cost. Sometimes you have less flexibility, commitment to payroll, sick days, vacation days, and the all-knowing personality clashes can happen, especially if it's just one person or one employee. And so, that could become an issue going forward. The pros of a virtual assistant, and maybe even a remote individual, is generally cost effective, flexible, access to wider and efficient talent, that you could pull from, and of course, automated communication. And so a lot of this small business oversight and also management is a lot about communication. And there are benefits to having it automated. But then, of course, there's benefits to not, because sometimes the questions can't always be lined up with the automation of some of these kind of automated calling centers that, and or Google that will, you can plug in, if they've asked this question, this is the answer, but it's not always that perfect. So a little of both can be a perfect balance, assuming that you can dovetail these entities to interact at times as one. So internships, community service, retirees, volunteers, beware. Offering internships can be very rewarding to both your business and to the individual. We all had to start somewhere. I do remember when I was young, out of college, looking for internships, and I was completely green, and extremely thankful to the person who took a chance with me. Typically, what we do here is, because I do focus very strongly on internships, we are local to many colleges in our area, between both liberal arts college and also career colleges. And I always say, look into your local colleges, potentially maybe even your vocational schools, local job workforce stations. That can be really helpful. Many of the colleges, these students come with fluid website navigation skills, social media and marketing skills, which you may have that, but as the changing world around social media seems to be changing every day, Some of us don't have the time, such as a small business owner, to stay on top of all of that. And so a lot of these youth that are in schools, maybe going for marketing, advertising, are actually looking for volunteer, looking for internships to do this. And so you might want to keep that in mind. It is, and most of them are adults. They're, above the age of 18. And so generally can be relied on for both getting to and from, if they need to be at your business, place of business. They usually have transportation, and then also, it just comes with that, the added responsibility. So also your vocational programs here in New York State, BOCES is a great program that we have tapped into many times. In fact, we have a part-time employee that comes and works here and started off with doing an internship through BOCES. It was a skill-based training program and has since now become a part-time employee. I think he's going on to his fourth year. And so, looking for partners to allow their students to apply their skills in local community businesses really goes a long way. Another consideration are possibly your youth groups. Of course, since most of us potentially, or at least I'm not sure, are aligned with agriculture, a lot of your 4-H and FFA clubs are looking for both community service and internships. So you should consider that as a possibility. Some of your ministry groups, Volunteer New York, Girls and Boys Club, all again, a plus plus. And then, of course, I did mention really briefly about under local clubs, scholastic and collegiate schools, but there are also some adult skill-based learning programs out there through some of your centers with individuals with disabilities. And so as an example, we work with an organization called Camp Ramapo, and those individuals come to the farm and are learning a skill-based with their trainer on site. None of it is high level, but it is, work is work, especially for some of the things that we're giving them. And they come with their job coach in hand each time. And what's nice is for us, it's going to be kind of a building block. And so they'll go forward. Again, this is, I should mention, free because they're all considered internships. And so it really is a win-win for many. Okay, collaborations and outsourcing. Some of the ways that we started, because when we started with our farm here, we did not have a website, and I did not have the time to build a website. So I was trying to find kind of a quick and easy way to kind of like get started, but yet get the word out of what we were doing. And so there's a couple different ways to do it. I tried to look at this presentation as something that maybe for some of your businesses, it's a one-time type of thing. Maybe it's a twice-a-year event type of thing, or maybe you want to build your website to be, kind of a presence on the internet. So that's kind of my approach when I set this up. So step one, if you don't have a website, you don't have the time to both put in the time to setting a website up, sometimes pay the fees. We'll talk about that really briefly. You should consider partner with a concierge service. A lot of your concierge services, which I was mentioning to Lindsay earlier, they are developing overnight. What it is, if you're not familiar with a concierge service, typically you have a lot of these travel bloggers, we call them, who are now, whether they're just on social media, showing people what they could do in terms of where they went. Maybe they wanted to go to New York and they wanted to go to the best restaurant that serves, something very eccentric. A lot of these travel bloggers or vloggers are basically doing that. And then there are actual people in place, companies who are concierge services and are looking to partner and collaborate with small businesses. So the concierge service can offer a whole broad assortment of different events that people could assign for. And what's nice is you haven't done the work on the website yet. You haven't had to really kind of like get all of your ducks in a row in terms of presence on social media yet. So if you just want to get your feet wet, just kind of maybe sometimes test the waters, that's what some of these concierge services are good to start with. How I've set ours up is I was the one that did the immediate reach out, and I said, I've got a program here I want to talk to you about, or maybe a one-time event I want to talk to you about, and see if you're interested in partnering up. So if you maybe have something where, I'll give examples, and this maybe will be a little bit easier, is for some farms, maybe they want to test the waters with, one event, let's say yoga on the farm. It's a very popular one. And maybe you're not ready to kind of commit to the frequency of, putting the dates on a website and things like that. Maybe you just want to do some type of booking platform that will allow you to sell the tickets and will also market for you. But it's going to be a one or maybe two times a year tops. And so some of the online booking services, specifically Eventbrite, Swoogo, Ticket Leap, Wovas, Zoom events, fee-based. These are all fee-based events. And what I mean by that is if you were to book an event in Eventbrite, let's say a yoga class, and you set your charge, and the question they will ask you is the participant who's booking the ticket paying the surcharge, or are you paying the surcharge? And so that's how a lot of these online booking services get their money. All slightly different. In terms of the percentage of fee that they collect, but that percentage is going towards facilitating the the platform that you're selling on, so to say, and also the fact that they are marketing at a very simplistic level your event, along with all the other thousands of them. But they are very easy to use. You don't have to set a lot of time up in any of them. You could just cut and paste your event, some small details, launch it, and then go from there. And so all of these guys, a lot of these e-commerce sites is what we also refer to them by, can be linked to your bank account, and so the money goes right through immediately. Some of the ones I've listed, there's many of them. These are the bigger ones, and these are the ones that I know specifically because I've used a couple of them, have been very easy to facilitate. So next step, let's actually jump to external websites, and that is Airbnb, TripAdvisor, Viator, Vrbo. The reason I'm going to jump to that is maybe you're in between. You are not quite ready to set up a website yet, to have a permanent presence on the internet. Maybe you want to take advantage of some of these other facilitators, these external websites. And most of these, you're probably very familiar with it. Most of these are associated with either accommodations, if you had like an apartment or a farm stay or something on your farm, or experiences you're offering at your farm. An experience means that they would come and experience, could be yoga, could be a painting class, could be pick your own lavender, could be a cooking class, all those things. A lot of these external websites have a very, very broad following, and they do collect quite a bit commission on each experience sold. You can see it says 20%, which is much, much higher than some of your small online booking services, because there's a lot more work that goes into the setup on the external website. So specifically Airbnb, if you want to sell, hypothetically, what we do here is llama alpaca walks. There is a section where you go in, and this really applies to both TripAdvisor and Viator and Vrbo and Outdoorful, and there's so many more of them, but those are the top ones that actually I use. Is you would ask to set up a new experience. It would ask you all of these questions. It's pretty elaborate because there's a template that gets filled in, but when it gets published, it looks very natural. And so the point is, once you get all your information in, it has to be approved by each of the company's webmasters, which is very simple to do. And then your audience, which is the audience of Airbnb, they have millions of people that log through them and follow them. TripAdvisor, Viator, Vrbo, your experience or whatever that you've put in will be launched and set up there. It's in addition to the benefit of these external websites is they are self-sufficient. That is almost kind of similar to be your virtual assistant, because what happens is if people have questions, you've actually preset potential questions and answers on it. And if it doesn't completely answer the question, if someone wants to say, what happens when it rains, they can message you specifically through the external website. So you don't have to worry about giving up your own personal email address, your phone number, anything of that. It's very well protected in that sense, which is really helpful especially if you're not ready to kind of go out into the public and just give out all your private information. But at the same time, there's specific words that you cannot use in these websites. Specifically for Airbnb, they do not want you to use to ever list your website name and or a phone number, because they want all communication to go directly through their platform. And there's benefits to that, because if for some reason something was to go kaflooey, like, somebody said something, someone posted or said something differently, or maybe they committed to something, they didn't follow through, whatever it is, it's all recorded in that. And so a lot of these clients, or I see a lot of these companies, are supportive of their clients. Yes, they're also supportive of their visitors, but aside from that, it's very easy to facilitate both communications and or any of issues you may have through these external website platforms. Now, internal websites, that is as you say, meat and potatoes, that's the meat of it. I actually, when I started, as I mentioned earlier, I started with using singular services through Eventbrite. And then I recognized I wanted a little bit more presence on the internet, but I didn't have the time to sit down and wrap my head around a website. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of your brand, your logo, how you're setting up your pages, etc. So that's when I jumped to the external websites. And so we advertise on Airbnb, TripAdvisor, and as I mentioned, all those others. And then I realized, after running our experiences for about a year and a half, and realizing that 20% of my income was going to these external websites, I said, okay, it's time to sit down and spend some time and figure out a website. So a lot of these ones I've mentioned: Squarespace, Wix, web.com, WordPress. There's many, many out there, but these are the ones that I actually have worked with: Squarespace, Wix, and WordPress. They are all relatively similar. Pricing could be somewhat different. The thing with a lot of these websites, you don't pay a percentage or commission, you pay an annual subscription fee. And the subscription fee is based on how many marketplace add-ons you have. And so you could have just a very basic web presence, like on a Wix page. You could just get your web address and get that started. And I used GoDaddy for that, and I didn't list that here, but there's a lot of other options out there. And then just get a simple little page set up. That will cost you limited amounts each year, because all it is really just an information page. And you could say, if you have additional questions, call me, email me, whatever. But if you really want to go with the virtual assistant route, because you don't have any in-person people to pick up the phone and do all that other kind of in-person communication, that a lot of these other Squarespace have the add-ons that can be that virtual assistant, which means that if somebody, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, if somebody says, okay, I want to learn more about, maybe an event that's happening. Let's say a farm tour, and they hear about it, so they want to be able to find, what website to go through, and then they want to be able to read it, and also then possibly gather more information, and or maybe even consider what it means to, if I want to visit, do I have to buy tickets, and so if it does, and instructs you how to do that, and if they follow through with the ticket purchasing, it also then, a lot of these websites will then basically send out a confirmation, and you can personalize any of this information that goes out to them. So the point is that's the virtual assistant part. It's doing all the taking the money, so to say, because I've preset it. It's also communicating with the purchasers, saying, congratulations, or we're happy to know that you'll be coming to the farm, blah, 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 blah. It also will do reminder emails and or text. So remind people that if they've pre-booked an experience at the farm, let's say a month, whatever dates you want to set for it to go back as reminders. I do 3 days. Actually, I do 72 hours, 48 hours, and 24 hours. And I can get into why I have it set like that. But as we all know, we're getting inundated with emails and things like that, and sometimes we don't always catch them immediately. And so it sends out reminders. It's kind of like when the dentist's office calls you and says, don't forget you have an appointment. Well, you can set that up all to be automated through all of these websites, and that's the virtual assistant part. And I got to tell you, if you get it going and you've worked out all the kinks in the gears, it pretty much, at least in my circumstance, and we've made little tweaks along the way, um, it does a fabulous job. And so the amount I pay for annual subscription, specifically for Squarespace, for all my bells and whistles in place, I pay close to $400 a year. And you know that if you had an employee who was facilitating phone calls and inquiries through emails, and it would cost you more than that a year. And so those are the difference that I'm just trying to kind of break apart. Maybe you don't have an experience. Maybe you just want to sell a product, and you also want it to be somewhat self-sufficient. So the e-commerce platforms such as Shopify, Wix, BigCommerce are all really well-known platforms. Again, it's a percent of fee of what's sold is how they collect. But you know, because I was selling experiences and I wanted a website presence is why I started with the website. If you're just selling, a product, that's what a lot of these e-commerce sites are better suited for. The benefit to some of these e-commerce sites is it is non-contractual, and you don't really put a lot of time into setting up your platform on them. And so if you don't have, again, little time, it's a good place to start. Now, I don't want you to forget within social media, not only is it used for marketing, as we know, but a lot of them also have marketplaces where people are selling stuff. And as you know, Facebook is still pretty popular. A lot of people now are switching over and using it as a marketplace. Instagram, that is another kind of common place for purposes of not only facilitating social media, but also for selling. And then, of course, TikTok. And if you're not familiar with TikTok, it's another social media platform. And they have all these, it's mostly it's a young person's kind of facilitation. It was known to be kind of the videoing of dance moves and things like that, but it really has taken on a whole new move. In fact, for social media purposes, I do not do any advertising in the sense of paper advertising, and or cutouts in books or things like that. Any advertising I do, which is minimal, is actually through social media. Because when we were starting off, I wanted to get the word out and take advantage of some of the social media's analytics. So, and if you're familiar with that, such as like on Instagram, if you were always, looking through pictures of, let's say, farms, or let's just say llamas, because we do llama alpaca hikes, then that would frequent up into your page. And so you can pay for pretty inexpensive advertising, and you can pick your region, you can pick your market, meaning the age of people. Maybe you want males, maybe you want females, maybe you want a mix, maybe you want people who are interested in who only look at pictures about llamas. And so the benefit to the targeting marketing campaigns that a lot of these social media platforms do are very, very efficient. Once you get going and you can convince enough of your visitors who come to your farm to tag you and share your photos and all of that for their time that they're at the farm, that is your in-house marketing with it. Basically, it's your free marketing. And so sometimes we'll run little kind of campaigns that, for a while when I was getting started, if you were coming to the farm, I was saying once a month, I'm going to pull someone's name who does a TikTok video on the farm and give them a little gift or something like that. So there's ways to do it that are fairly inexpensive, that are very effective, in terms of getting the word out, so to say. All right, let's get to the next screen. All right, so, and we'll of course open this up for questions because I know I'm kind of moving through some of this pretty quickly, but I don't want to skip over risk. And I have actually broken it out into two sections. We have done specifically risk under the communication part of it and risk under, I call it aversion. So the risk communication part, it's mostly coming down to customer relationship, the management of, and as we know, communication is paramount to the success of anything. And so, this day and age, a lot of people are very comfortable. A lot of your word of mouth is whether it's through social media, but it's also a lot through reviews. We all know that between Google, TripAdvisor has their own platform. Yelp has their own platform. People are very fluid with writing reviews. And most of the time, people, before, if they don't know your business, are going to look at the reviews before they book with your business. And so the one issue is, if you are not clear in your information, whether it's on your website, it's in your emails that are sent out, any of those things, it could become a little difficult and take up a lot of your time trying to communicate with someone who's possibly disgruntled for either a purpose that is related to what you do or not. It's so easy for people this day and age to post negative reviews without any causation. Could be simply they were running late for the experience. They got there, but they weren't happy because they got the whole experience or the whole whatever it was. And the point is, the reviews, they can post anything. And it could have been they were unhappy because it was cloudy. It could have been unhappy because it was rainy, regardless of your experiences. And so the best thing you can do is be extremely clear with both your what you're offering to the individuals that you're looking to sell. So make sure that the booking is clear and it is articulate in terms of both. We use the word is, what will they do when they come to the farm? We start with, you'll drive into the parking lot, you'll get out of your car, you'll go to the farm store, you'll check in. We almost play it out each step by step by step to make sure that they're aware of what they'll be doing. We're extremely clear. Well, I try to be extremely clear on a cancellation or refund policies. And that is very repetitive. And in fact, I have, in the time that they go to my website and they look up something they want to do, it tells you right there on that page what the cancellation or the refund policy is, so they know. Once they decide to go forward, and if they book that experience, the confirmation that comes by and says, congratulations, you booked a ticket, blah, 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 it's on this date at this time. I do want to remind you about our booking, our rescheduling, our cancellation policies. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have a process where it goes, you get another reminder 72 hours before your experience. And so it's basically 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. I know it's a lot, but it can get people, inundated with the emails. And in each of those, I have restated what it means about cancellation. Typically, just so you know, my refund policy is, or your cancellation policy must be changed 3 days before the start of your experience. And typically, once they receive that 48-hour notification, the first thing on the very top of it says, if you're receiving this is to remind you of your experience, it is too late to cancel. Do not call to ask to cancel or reschedule. And so I just kind of keep that thread of information consistent going, so they know that even if they do call and they try, which some people do, I'm going to say no. And they know that because I've told them 4 times. I will tell you, since COVID, a lot of people will hide very comfortably behind emails, phone messages, forcing businesses to be the fall guy. So if for some reason they say, I knew I had to get to my scheduled experience, I couldn't make it, but I want my refund. And so you got to hold tight, because the one issue is, if you give in to someone for a non-legit reason, and when I say non-legit, it could be they forgot, they didn't leave early enough to get to your farm, they didn't take it serious, they figured they could just walk on when they did. That is not acceptable. If I have a real emergency, I do kind of clarify with them. I talk on the phone to better understand, if someone was, emergency, car accident, flat tire, those types of things that are unavoidable. So it is important that you do clarify and you do let them know that what your policies are, and that your language is consistent and repetitive. And also, one of the words I do put in my 48-hour email is I tell them it's binding. There is no way of getting out of this. And then we also say that no shows do not constitute a refund. So just little tidbits of what I'm using my language. We could always on the side talk more if you guys want some more information. But in addition, I also have in my information, I do say that I state in my emails that the farm has the right to ask you to leave during your experience. without a refund if we feel that they are disrupting the experience and putting others or themselves in danger. Because as you know, with the farm, there is risk. So that is extremely clear. So risk aversion, most importantly, before you start what you're doing, you may want to talk to your insurance company and just let them know about your plans and make sure that what you're proposing to do is covered. And at the same time is you should, if you have a business plan, you should be sharing it with them so they know everything. You know, it's my insurance company or my insurance agent is basically my go-to. They should be your go-to before you ever have to have a lawyer as a go-to, because of really what it comes down to. If somebody wants to place a claim or suit or sue you for something, and you know this day and age is so easy, the most important part is your insurance company going to cover you. And so this is why they are literally my partners in this. And I share everything with them. And in fact, I often bring them to the farm once a year and I say, okay, let's walk around. Let's talk about what we've got. Let's just make sure that everything is still, you know, aligned with what our policy states and what your rules are in this, whatever, you know, 2023. That is really important. And also, you know, it doesn't hurt to, for those of us that are in New York State, some of your other states have them. Specifically, we in New York State have Cornell Cooperative Extension. I use them for quite a bit. When we started off with our business plan, I use them for review. And whenever I have an odd question that comes up, I don't hesitate to also email them or call them and say, have you seen this or heard this or have any suggestions about this? They are also a partner in this process, and a lot of the offices are staffed specifically for that. So before we end, you know, it just kind of circles back to is, you know, be mindful of what you can handle before you start. We started extremely small. As I mentioned earlier, we offer experiences. We started out with one hike a week. That's how small it was. And then as I got comfortable with it and I kind of worked out some of the issues with people arriving, expectations, I then slowly grew it. I kind of what I call the layering process. And each time I layered, if it was small layers, I didn't call my insurance company. It was big layers, such as we do the llama alpaca hikes. Now we do goat walks. We also do donkey walks. I would let our insurance company know that, and just say, hey, we're adding this on. Make sure that you have it in your notes. Make sure that our carriers, our insurance carriers or our underwriters know that that's what's going to be happening here at the farm and that's covered. So those are all really important aspects. You know, and as I mentioned earlier, is as always, invite your insurance company to come and see what's going on, and you can explain to them everything you're doing. So that is the end of my presentation. We're going to leave, it looks like about 20 minutes open for questions.